How's everyone going? You let me know if you can hear me. Just going to get some tea. Lovely. So we're day. Hey Brian, how you doing? We're I think day 15 today on our alcohol lockdown, and it's still a weird experience, but we're getting used to it. So yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? You know, it's all depends on how you frame it yourself. And you know, I think from my perspective, it's always yeah, it's a lot better to do this without the alcohol. Hey Esther, Damien, how you doing? So this is the first of the alcohol fuck off series that we're going to do. So Damien says, I just finished reading Alcohol Lied to Me by Craig Beck. Unfortunately, I've watched your videos so many times I didn't learn anything new. Yeah, Craig is a salesman, I think. Yeah, he's a character. I haven't met the guy, but I would like to meet him someday. Yeah, so I mean, it's for us, it's just yeah, getting on with stuff. For me, it's just days as normal, just doing getting to know what I'm doing myself. Brian says, I know I'm a salesman too. Yeah, I used to. One of my first jobs that I ever had was selling insurance when I was 18 or 19, and it was one of the horriblest jobs I've ever done in my life. Just the amount of people, the amount of abuse I got. So, got to give it to any salesman out there. You know, you've got to have a thick skin for that job. Hey Peter, how you doing? Michael O'Brien from New Hampshire. How's things going? What do you think of his evil clown philosophy? What's the alcohol is? I don't attest to that. I mean, for me, if you start saying to yourself that alcohol is evil, then you're giving it this. You're heightening up the thing of alcohol, which is, for me, alcohol is just an inert substance. It's something that it's up to you in your mind whether you're going to drink it or not. It's not going to force you to drink it. It can't, it's not evil or good or bad or whatever. There's no morality in alcohol. It's just another chemical. It's us that takes the alcohol and puts it into our own system. You know what I mean? So, but if you start calling it, when people say, alcohol is the devil or alcohol is this huge big thing, then you're creating this monster inside your own head, and that makes it more difficult. And the whole job for you, especially in that transition period, is to force yourself to believe that alcohol is as low as possible. So do you get what I mean? It's you're not giving any power away to that. Taking all the power for yourself. The more you give outside of yourself, the less you have for yourself. It's all about self-control. How much do you control? As soon as you start saying to yourself, well, this is evil, alcohol and all that kind of stuff, it just diminishes your own control, because you can always say, well, it's like it's the alcohol's fault. It's like with responsibility. You have to have 100% responsibility on this, because if you've got 99%, that 1% will kick you in the arse. You can say to yourself, well, look, that's the 1% that's the excuse for you to have a drink on a Saturday night when you're feeling lonely, or when you're feeling pissed off, or that kind of stuff. So Chris 83, first time I've joined one of your videos live, 500 days sober. Brilliant. I love hearing that. Stay safe. Yeah, you too, Chris. Hey Julie, you are my Irish subconscious inner voice. Well, Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? Like, that's all right. I agree with it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Damien says, I agree that it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. Evil clown, though, it's painted by the industry to be fun and attractive and tasty, but it's all bullshit. and you have to figure that out. Well, that's it. I don't even think it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's what you put into it yourself. Like I say, if you believe that, then uh, alcohol is just a tool, because if you have to change what you think in your mind about the alcohol. If you don't, you're going to switch out that for something else. For whatever. I know people who stop drinking, but then they start smoking weed and stuff. And I think the two, when you compare the two, probably weed is less damaging to your body, but I don't think it's any less damaging to your life, because it stops you from doing anything. From my personal point of view, anyway, it stopped me from doing a lot. Irene says, I don't have many days sober and some slip up, so frustrating. Yeah, I mean, it can be, but you're on the journey, which is, for me, it's getting onto that epic journey. Once you're there, once you're starting out, then you can start to figure things out. The worst time is for people who just don't even know that they've got a problem. I was in that I think most of us were in that situation for so many years. You don't get it. You don't understand what the problem is. You think that it's down to you drinking too much instead of you drinking alcohol, period. Do you know what I mean? So, Brian Jones, I don't find alcohol addictive in any way, but my problem is that I drink to numb the pain of trauma. I have no family members who care about me, and they all use drugs. That's one of the issues. When you start out and you get into it, I think the transformation side of this, when you get past the alcohol, is looking for ways of dealing with the coping strategies, so that you look for internal coping strategies rather than external ones. You're not destroying yourself while trying to protect yourself, if you understand. So Will Griggs, yeah, I had to look that up. Peter, talking about the Irish, I didn't even know who that was. That's a Northern Irish guy as well, so he's probably, I don't know if he's classed as being English or UK. Yeah, I've never followed Irish football anyway. They're a rubbish team. We're not like the Dutch. I mean, the Dutch, if you put something orange on somebody, they'll follow it, and you'll get crowds of people out supporting. The Irish tend to do that only when we're at the brave end of things. Like if Ireland, I remember Ireland got into what was it now they did? The cricket. Yeah, they got into the cricket world, the World Cup, and they got somewhere stupid like the quarterfinals, when it's a game where Ireland has got no business in, but they got really far in, and then loads of Irish people come out to support it. But that's the only time you'll really get it. Damien said, I started drinking more because I quit marijuana, so for a job drug test. And from there, it took over, mostly because it was far easier to get and fill the same hole weed was. That's what I'm saying to you. It's taking out something, one thing out of your life, and then trying to fit something else back into the same hole, instead of changing your whole framework, the whole mindset of how you look at these things in the first place. You're much better off. And it's the reason why people don't do it is because it's not expedient. It's much more difficult to look for answers to the problems inside yourself than it is to go and find a bottle and just drown your sorrows and forget about it. But it doesn't. It just makes it worse, doesn't it? So still, while I drink, nothing else to do, playing games and watching videos. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things. There's a lot of stuff that you can do in life. I mean, it's one of the complaints that I had at the beginning. I used to have a lot when I was drinking. I was bored. I couldn't do this and I didn't have that. Now I have no time. I mean, I wish I had twice as much time, and I'm never bored. When I sit down and watch TV, it's because I'm tired and I just want to chill out doing something. But I'm never bored. So, and I think that was just really a part of that same mentality and mindset of drinking. It's instant gratification. People don't like the discomfort, and discomfort or boredom is a form of discomfort that people don't like to be in. For me, I don't mind it too much nowadays, It was the Euro Cup. Was he in Wigan or something like that? I think he's a Wigan team with the Euro Cup, but I don't want to spoil the quality time, Peter. Foil Grim Timmy says, been drinking a ton of coffee and eating a bunch of carbs since I quit. You can deal with that later on. It's getting rid of one thing out of the way first, putting as much distance between yourself and the alcohol, and then you can start on the other things. Esther says, be careful bringing up the Dutch in orange. Yeah. I've seen some crazy Dutch people. I mean, they really go above and beyond what is it's just weird, weird. The worst one, the one I seen, the best one that I seen was in a local bar to Esther's place where Esther lives, and this guy came out for a Dutch match, and he had the long tails, the coat and tails with the whole thing was orange, and I'm sure he dyed his hair orange, or he had a big orange hat on him or something. Caffeine makes me want to drink, says Julie. I realized that yesterday when I had a coffee in the afternoon. Then I wanted to drink to calm down. No more of that. Exactly. At least you've got something that you've got a comparison there. Brian Jones says, I replaced the alcohol addiction with sex addiction. I'm unsure how to remove the pain of being unloved. Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's dealing with one thing at a time, like I said, and then you can move on to dealing with other things. But I think that it can be, I suppose, just as destructive as alcohol in a certain sense, that it takes your time and changes your mentality. So all of my blue shirts and blue hoodies, yeah, they're all in the laundry. This is something I bought from Barcelona, and we were up there. It was the last weekend. We went to see the last Barcelona match before they closed everything down. Hey Aaron, how you doing? Just got up and realized this was going on. The Hooded Claw. Hey Kevin, did you ever have any slip-ups or struggles 6 months into quitting? Never had any slip-ups. Didn't really have a lot of struggles. I had one struggle. I had one moment where I was out walking and I got a phone call off a mate of mine when I was walking, and he was my best mate in Ireland. So the one that I used to go out with drinking, and I said to him, where are you? And he mentioned this bar that he was in, or he was going to this other bar. And just for that moment, it flashed through my mind that I could have gone down to join him if I was up the road from him. I wouldn't have done, but and it just shook me a little bit for the rest of the afternoon. And I thought to myself, what's this? I thought all these thoughts were gone. It was easy 6 months after I'd stopped. I can't remember the exact time. But it's just one of those things. I hadn't spoken to this guy in ages, so it was a trigger that I hadn't fired off since I stopped drinking. And all of a sudden, those two associations come up, and bang, this trigger came up. But so long as you know what it is and you know how to deal with it, How long have I been off the drink? 7 years, just 7 years and a bit. So January 2012. Following up on the sex addiction of Brian, I've got questions about that. Did you ever talk about this subject in a video? No, I never. I haven't got much experience with it, but I know it's a similar sort of a thing, and I'm presuming it's probably more of a porn addiction than a sex addiction. I think they're two different things as well. It's another one is you simulate it instead of the actual act. So, but like I said, I don't know too much about it, but it's something I'd like to look into, because I think all of those kind of things have the same basis. Sex addictions, whether you're gambling, any substance abuse, they start off with a lot of a lot of contextual stuff starts it out. So the environmental stuff, the social stuff, where you're brought up and who you're brought up with, and the chance occurrences when you're brought up, and how what you find to deal with things in life. I was thinking recently about I started off going to the Scouts years ago, when I was 13. The same year actually that I had my first drink, I went to the Scouts. And the scouting thing for me was a real uh, I come from a big family, 9 kids, and we were in a small house and we were kicked out into the street because my mum couldn't handle all of us. I was the second eldest. And I think scouting gave me that little bit of um, what would you call it? It was sort of like getting into national service or something. It was a bit of self-discipline. They have the discipline outside, but then they teach you self-discipline and self-confidence. And I stopped that because not because of alcohol. It was the same time as I had a drink, but I did other things. I was smoking at the time, and I never learned a lot of those lessons that I learned. And I think as you get older, then because you didn't learn the lessons of self-confidence, and I was really shy getting into my 20s and late teens and 20s, and I used alcohol as a control for that, the coping mechanism. So, and then you start using alcohol or whatever it is, for other things in your life. And I think it's the same thing with the sex addiction. Is people can use it as a control, as a coping mechanism. I think the hookup culture has ruined my generation, and put a lot more worth in finding a real relationship not based on sex. I think that's a really adult way of looking at things. I think when you're younger, it all focuses around sex. When you get a bit older, it just doesn't anymore. As Peter says, I think it's too complex for a session. Yeah, just it is, and it's like I say, Pete, it's something that I haven't thought a lot about, so I don't have ready answers available. I mean, just from what I can conjecture about the different, the similarities. I think there's a lot of similarities across the board. Damien says it makes them happy for long. They just need more. That's the thing, it's one of all. Yeah, it's just a question of what is giving you. It's that thing of between instant gratification in the moment and trying to delay your gratification into the future. I'm not talking about the sex addiction here. I'm talking about, in terms of your long-term happiness or contentment more than anything else. Building that life that that is feeding you back something, instead of having nothing that's feeding you back, and then you're in the short term trying to give yourself some form of pleasure. I mean, the moment is that's when you get your pleasures in the moment. The moment is when you get all your sensations. It's where you do all your thinking. It's where you do things. You be in the moment. So the past is gone and the future is not guaranteed. So it's the only time you really have. But as a thinking being, you've got to think about the future and about improving yourself and improving your lot. Because I think as you get older, physically things definitely get more difficult. You have to think about that, and I think mentally you can get stronger and stronger as you get older, unless you get Alzheimer's or something like that. And even then, I think the future is not looking too bad in those contexts either. So, the Hooded Claw, I like that name. What was that thing? The Claw. Who did that? I can't remember now. I've had an addiction to porn since we're all anonymous here. Oh, working on that. Also quit sugar, caffeine, refined carbs for a year. Feel great. Still struggling with the alcohol though. Yeah. Like I say, it's one thing. One thing you have to deal with one thing before you can move on to something else. I think that's the best way of looking at it. Jim Carrey, that's the one. Yeah. I remember you talking about porn being addicted as a bad thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think any addiction where you're focused on something to the detriment of other things in your life is a bad thing. I mean, I'm not. I don't think I've got any opinion either way on porn as a moral thing. I don't know, but I think if you're focused on it, I think it takes you outside of reality. You know, I think it fucks around with your head. You know, and it gives you this false idea of what is real in life. You know, and I think it pushes uh, it pushes how you think about sex into a different sort of a different way, and that's not good. Liar, liar, yeah. The claw. Greg Newton, my wife would tell me she drank because just drinking something was just a habit of drinking. Could you not drink without alcohol? Would be my question to her. She would only, not very rarely. Um, yeah, I think but that's most people. You know, most people just do it because they're there's a dependence on alcohol. I think most people in life, and dependence is this word like a physical thing, and I think most dependence is a mental dependence, that they've associated something with, you know. So you get a lot of people who drink alcohol with their meal, but they won't drink it outside of that. So they drink a glass of wine with their meal, and that's a form of dependence. But it's a physical, almost like a Skinner dependence. You know, that they've learned this learn one thing with another. You know, they've associated one thing with another. And there's people who are definitely physically dependent on it. You know, we talked about this with the alcoholics, that you can get to a certain stage in your life when you've drank so much alcohol and you drink it so much that you physically can't stop without tapering off and without getting medical treatment, because you know there's serious side effects to it. You know, you can die from it. But that's, you know, the levels of alcohol that you've got to be able to drink. And some people react differently to alcohol, so it's not everyone has to be drinking on that level. So, but you know yourself, if you can stop drinking for a few days and there's no real bad physical effects, you know that you're not going to get it into the long run. So I've been doing a lot of talking today, so my throat is sore. Michael, no worries, Michael. Your work is appreciated. Come from upstate New York, still struggling with the alcohol in a big way, but your work makes it feel optimistic. The hooded claw is from an old cartoon, The Perils of Penelope Pitstop. I remember that. Penelope Pitstop. Damien says, have you ever talked about your distancing from your Catholic upbringing? What made you choose to stray from it? I remember distinctly exactly where I was. I was walking down on this road parallel to O'Connell Street in Dublin. And no word of a lie, I just, something popped into my head that just said to me that it wasn't, what I've been taught from the Catholic Church wasn't real, and scared the shit out of me for ages. And I just didn't know, you know, it's one of those realizations that you have, that it just, yeah, I didn't know what to do. And probably that was a lot to do with my drinking as well, because, you know, especially when you're brought up in a religion which has been, is so fucked up, you know, not the religion itself, but you know, one part of it with all the paedophilia and the church trying to hide it and all that kind of stuff. That sort of, you know, that I think anyone who's my age, you know, when you're brought up, I mean, things have changed so fast since I grew up, that, you know, there's so many different conflicts have happened, you know, with, you know, challenging what you originally believed was true. I mean, I grew up in a house where my mum stayed at home, my dad went out working, you know, for expediency more than anything else. My dad, with 9 kids, and you know, my dad had to work 2 jobs sometimes, and my mum was more capable of looking after us than my dad was. So that was just a fact. But then you grow up and you know, you're told that all that kind of stuff is wrong. It's not wrong, but it's, you know, yeah, just different ways of thinking about things, isn't it? But yeah, so it's been a long time since I went to church or did anything like that. Maybe you covered it already, but what's your viewpoint on drinking non-alcoholic beer? I think if it helps you, then drink it. I wouldn't advise it in the beginning, because the problem with it at the beginning is that you've got this, you know, that something is missing. You know, the alcohol is missing out of it, because you know, the taste is not there. There's a taste associated with alcohol. They say alcohol is tasteless, but you can smell it, you can taste it, and it's part of that experience. When you take that out of alcohol, out of the beer, then it's noticeable straight away. And the beers are a lot better nowadays. If I drink an alcohol-free beer now, which I do every so often, maybe with a curry, we have curry once a week, and I have an alcohol-free beer with that. Otherwise, I can't be arsed. It's not there. But I notice the difference if somebody put an alcohol beer beside it. For me, beer is now alcohol-free. That's what I'm trying to say. But at the beginning, it's not. You're still a drinker, and you're still, if you're trying to go from alcohol beer to a non-alcohol beer. Some people say it helps them, but I don't think it does in the beginning. I think it's they're fooling themselves, because they're what they're doing is they're trying to substitute, and that substitution doesn't work in the beginning because the whole idea is to put distance. We were talking about this morning, positive alcohol distancing, right, between the alcohol, the time that you're drinking alcohol. So you're trying to put as much time as you can between yourself and the alcohol. And while you're putting that time in place, you're also trying to alter your mind to what alcohol is, and you're trying to change a lot of the basic stuff, get through the day by day stuff, so that when you get to day 30, 40, 50, and so on, you've got over that day-to-day influence, that day-to-day habitual drinking where you would drink every day, that kind of thing. So the problem with alcohol-free beer in that early stage is it can affect that transition. It can really short circuit it, so you're not getting through it enough. You're not, so it's not a good idea in the beginning. I think later on, when you're totally out of it, then fair enough. But how do you help an alcoholic who doesn't wish to be helped? You can't. For 5 years, my sister drinks 2 liters of spirit a day. I recently give up on her. I'm not sure what to do. When I say you can't, it sounds really harsh. I don't mean to sound like that. It's the best thing that you can do is to stop yourself, is to live by example. And that's the only thing that you can really do, because yourself, anything that if you were drinking and you didn't understand or you didn't want to quit, anything that anyone says to you is just going to go over the top of your head, or you're going to hit back with something. You're not going to listen. So it's the same thing with other people. They just won't. A lot of people won't listen. So unfortunately, no matter what you do, I mean, I'd love all my family to stop drinking, all of them, but they're not going to do that. So maybe some of them will. I'm not saying that they all have to stop and that they're all big drinkers. They're not, but that's just it. Also, she encourages drinking and buys me alcohol and worsens my. That's a different side of it. You don't have to do that. Just think about it like a game of tennis. Somebody fires you something like this and says, "Well, I bought you this alcohol, or you should drink it, and that 1 or 2 is no much." You can take that and then fire it straight back at them and say, "Well, I'm not doing that. This is, that's in your control." So anything that you do for yourself and what you put inside your body is in your control. What with other people, you can't control what they do. So. Damien says set the lead. That's the only way to do it. What were your thoughts when you finally decided to give up alcohol for good? How did you feel that moment and that day? Weird. I stopped on the 2nd of January 2012, and I'd already put it into my head that I was going to do it, and I had to do it, for my son. And those feelings are sort of difficult to explain. I mean, if you're a father and you see yourself leading your kids astray, and then you come to that realization, on top of everything else. So you've already got the understanding that your life is not going too good, that your health is being kicked because of this, and then also you're sort of influencing the closest person to you, the person that you care about the most. Then that's enough to sort of, when I came to that understanding, that was it. We were at my sister's for New Year's Day, so that was on the 1st of January. I had my last drink, and it was a toast, and it was a glass of wine, toasted everyone at the dinner, had a sip out of it, put it down, and I never touched it after that. I just didn't want it to even finish the glass, and I felt good about it. I felt scared because you're facing into your future and you don't know how to deal with things. I mean, that's been my thing now, is to learn and to teach. That's basically what I teach, is not the quitting drinking alcohol. I think that's the easy part. It's a simple part. You don't put it in, and I don't need to teach anyone that. It's what I teach is how to get past that transition, to get through the transition enough so that your mind is not on the alcohol anymore, that you're sort of turning around and you're facing into the future. And then transformation, the Habits Unplugged program that we do is mostly about that forward facing stuff. It's going away from the alcohol and finding things that are pulling you forwards instead of the alcohol pulling you back. So Gorasko says, I've always had a problem with alcohol, but recently it's gotten worse. Lost a friend, brother, and last year a daughter to suicide. I just can't get past it. Any suggestions? It's really sad, mate. For me, it's like I say, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, the best suggestion I can give you is to join our program. It's a complicated thing. Like I say, this is the easy part for me, is to tell you to stop drinking and don't put it into your mouth. That's the rule. It's a binary decision. If you say to yourself, look, I drink or I don't drink, and that's it, and then I deal with whatever else life's got to throw at me. But yeah, that's it's a complicated one in the long term, isn't it? And just getting through things and rebuilding your life so that you can deal with things without having to medicate yourself. So free for over 8 months, JR, congratulations. Had an alcohol-free beer at Christmas, enjoyed it, but didn't make me want to have a real one. No, I think once you're over a few months, I think it's safe enough to go down that route, because it's not like something that you've, alcohol itself, because it's a diuretic, it makes you want to drink more, just the alcohol itself, so you drink an alcohol beer with alcohol in it, and then you try drinking 4 or 5 alcohol-free beers straight, and it's very difficult. Because I could sit there and, I've often sat and drank 15 or 20 pints of Guinness. There's no way on earth that I would have been able to drink anything, any amount of liquid in that, in a day, 20 pints of anything, But alcohol, yeah, because you're flushing it out. You're flushing the water, the liquid out of your system, and it's making you thirsty, That's one of the secrets of the alcohol industry, it's that they know once you've had the first one, it's easier to get the second one, from a lot of different levels, from a biological level in that diuretic sense, and from a mental level in the drug sense. Your inhibitions drop, so it's easier to drink the second one. Greg says, my wife often said that drinking made her feel better because she had a congestive heart failure. It did help her, but she would crash. Over the long run, drinking further damaged her heart, and she died. Yeah, I'm in the same position. Sean's mother died from the same similar stuff. It was her drinking and her that same thing that just did so much damage, and that eventually she couldn't cope with it. So I get where you're coming from there. Damien says, I work somewhere that everyone drinks and smokes. Seeing short and long-term effects both help me quit and decide to quit both. Being able to do neither around both lets you see it from the outside in. Oxygen tanks and going to jail is not fun. They would blame everything but the problem, though completely blind of it. That's the problem. I mean, it's a lot of people have got that. It's that you have to have the responsibility. You have to take that on to yourself, that it's no matter what happens in your life, or what kind of a shit factory it is out there, you've got to deal with yourself, and you've got to deal with how you control things. You don't control a lot of this stuff. I mean, who's controlling this shit that's going on now? but you do control how you respond to it, and that's what you have to look at. Michael Syme says, I've stopped for 7 months now. The corona thing is pushing my buttons. Just look at your look at it like an opportunity to see things from a different point of view. I mean, I had one of our members earlier on sent me a message saying it was that this was giving her the opportunity to see things from the perspective, from a different perspective, because she wasn't stressed out with the normal day-to-day life stuff. This was going on, and she was a bit worried about money, but at the end of the day, there was a lot of stuff that was stressing her out in life, which has just stopped now, and now she's able to go in and deal with things from that perspective. So I think that's a good way of looking at things as well. My dad never smoked or drank. He looked 20 years younger than everyone else at his age and had no health problems. That's definitely a motivator for me. It's a good thing. My dad was he went into hospital with a heart attack 3 or 4 years before he died, and the doctor said, basically everything that's happened to him, his organs were failing, and it was because of his lifestyle choices. And I remember reading a piece from a doctor a few years ago, and this guy was saying that 90% of people who are in hospital are there because of the choices that they've made in their lives, not because of a disease or something like that, but because of the choices that they've made and that lead into a disease, if you get what I mean, not because of something that was, forced on them. JR says, I decided to take 100% responsibility for my actions and decided 100% never to drink again. Once I committed, no excuses. It got easier all the time. That's the thing. I mean, it's you push yourself in a certain direction, and when I say it takes 30 days before you get to a stage where it's easier, it's not a straight 30 days and then all of a sudden, it's a declining thing. So the discomfort declines. Your confidence in yourself should start to grow, even if it's only slightly every day, but it does. And if you think about it like, you've got an elastic band on day one and you start pulling that elastic band, the more you pull it, the weaker it gets. That's what your habit is like, so it's just stretches and stretches, and eventually it will break. You've broken the habit then, and then it's moving on to something else, and like I say, changing your way of doing things. It's down to a lifestyle choices, reframing things in your mind. A lot of stuff like that. Most of it is, as far as I'm concerned, is mental. It's just reframing or rethinking things, rethinking your life, and just looking at them from different perspectives. Changing a lot of stuff about you, changing a lot of the people that you're with, changing a lot of the environments that you're used to doing. Jay Matthew says, I can't stop drinking most of the time. I don't want to, but after work I stop, same place, same time. It's habitual, so you just, it's a question of trying to avoid those things as much as you can. And, at the beginning, there's nothing that is going to help you more than brute force, you forcing yourself to go past those things and saying, fuck this, I'm not going to do that today, and that's it. And if you have to do that for 2 months or 3 months, whatever it is, it's a worthwhile sacrifice to make. Cheers, William. Love and strength to everyone on here. I packed in drinking but developed a sweet tooth. I'm on a large bar of Cadbury's a day plus biscuits. Yeah, like I said earlier on, that with those kind of things, you can deal with that. Once you feel like you're over the alcohol, then you can start to deal with the rest of it, whatever else, and bit by bit. We used to always say it's like taking an onion. You take the brown bit off the onion and you start exposing things underneath. That brown bit is your alcohol habit, and then you will unlayer that bit of the onion and you come across some more stuff, and either there are problems underneath or that you have to deal with, or they're skills that you forgot about, that you didn't realize you had, that you start uncovering as well. So there's a positive and a negative but to both of these things. Brian says, my sister had a seizure due to alcohol 3 years ago. They said she had a 1 in 3 chance of surviving. I'm concerned about how many years she has left. Her liver was in. Yeah, I can understand that. It's definitely, I feel sorry for anyone who's drinking, especially people who are close to me. You see somebody doing something which is bad for them. When you stop yourself, I think it's not just that you start to look into things, and when you're drinking, if you see things that are detrimental to what your view is, let's say you're reading a magazine article and you come across a piece which says alcohol is bad for you and alcohol is bad for this and that and the other, you'll skip across that. But then if you see an article which says, oh, 1 glass of alcohol a day, 1 glass of wine a day will help you to blah blah blah, you'll take notice of that. But it's the opposites. When you stop drinking, you'll stop taking notice of that stuff, or you'll start going, oh yeah, that's bullshit, and you'll start taking notice of the things that says that alcohol is bad for you. Do you get what I mean? So that plays in your mind then with other people, because you can see the real truth behind the whole stuff. I found glutamine powder, 8 ounces in water kills sugar cravings instantly. Definitely worked for me. I had the same issue. That's a good tip. Yeah, so I think that's about it for us for today. I'm going to call it a day. Like I said, this is all possible because of Habits Unplugged. So this is sponsored by Habits Unplugged, if you like. So if you want to take a trial of our program, there's a link down below this video, but there's a link for the free book as well. It's 10 steps to stop drinking alcohol for good. I think there's a lot of good stuff in there just to help you to move on, to get to that next stage, to help you get across. I mean, like I said, for me, it's all about this epic journey that you can be on when you stop drinking alcohol. That's my thing now, is just the way things have moved on in my life, that I couldn't have even seen some of the stuff that's happened to me since I stopped. So it's one of those things that is, when you push yourself in a direction, you take any bad thing, whether it's an alcohol addiction, which is or a sex addiction, or anything that is negative for you, and you stop doing that and then turn your mind to something positive, you can make a huge difference in your life. I'll talk about that. There's a video coming out tomorrow. You can have a look at that and see. So listen, thanks very much for joining us, guys. I really appreciate it. We'll do another one in maybe a couple of weeks. I think it's good to have some lockdown solidarity. So take care of yourself, and I will speak to you again soon. Onwards and upwards. Bye, guys.